Welcome to episode 7 of the Bird Notice podcast. I'm Billy. I'm here with Ryan. This week we're going to get into the Orioles road trip where they took 2 of 3 from the Royals in Kansas City, dropped 2 of 3 to the Braves in Atlanta, and Felix Bautista won the AL Reliever of the Month award for April. Ryan, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. Before I get into those, though, since it is episode 7, I want to give a shout out to some former Orioles who've worn that number, kind of stealing a bit from Spittin' Chicklets when they used to have less than 100 episodes and were able to call out an NHL player that wore that number. So this week with episode 7, we'll go with Cal Ripken Sr., the number he wore as manager, and Mark Belanger, a longtime shortstop for the O's. But speaking of Felix Bautista, I'm sure I'm not the only one that feels like Cano should have been the AL reliever of the month instead of him. What do you think?
Yeah, I got the sense that that award is voted on by writers who aren't watching the games.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I mean, my conclusion is basically that this award was for saves and strikeouts and really nothing else because Cano beats him across the board. I was looking at the stats posted by MLB.com when they announced who won, and those numbers counted Batista's appearance on opening day on March 30th, so it wasn't just April. And that being known, Bautista pitched 2.2 more innings than Cano and faced 25 more batters. I don't really know how that works out. Batista had 5 more saves, which I think is kind of a made up stat and are relatively silly, and 13 more strikeouts, but Cano was better in everything else. Allowed only one base runner the entire time, which was when he hit Justin Turner last week. No hits, no walks, no runs. His whip was literally 0. And the on base percentage allowed was 0.30. I don't even know how do you say that in baseball? It's so low. 3% of batters got on base against him. So I feel like Cano should have won.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so concerned about Bautista that I offered him in a trade in my fantasy league for Iglesias of the Braves.
Oh, interesting. Selling high, buying low, huh?
Yeah, I'm hoping he just looks at the save total and smashes that accept button.
Iglesias did look good against the O's these last couple games. Like, I'm sure we'll get into that a bit.
Did you see who the last Orioles reliever was to win reliever of the month?
I didn't. I'm gonna guess Britain though.
No, that's a good guess. It's Jim Johnson in May of 2012.
Really? Even Britain in what was it, 2016 when his ERA was like 0.54 or something? He never won that.
Yeah, I was surprised too.
Hmm.
He had one of the greatest closer seasons ever.
Yeah, and then didn't pitch against the Blue Jays as you mentioned last time.
I saw his brother today, coaching third base for the Tides.
Buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I knew he was up with the Tides. He managed Bowie for a while, didn't he?
Yeah, he's a manager now, but they always have the manager coach third base.
Oh, he's the Norfolk manager.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Do other AAA teams do that, or is that just like an O's thing?
That's a good question. The O's have always done it since they've been affiliated with him. I remember Gary Allenson was coaching third base for him when he was the manager. Oh, you know what? Ron Johnson didn't, but he was like super veteran status, and he wasn't in the best shape either.
Couldn't stand up that all that time on the
No.
grass. Remember when Tommy Lasorda fell over? Was it at the All Star game?
Yeah, someone hit him with a bat.
Did it hit him or did it just like fly by him and he dodged out of the way? But yeah, I just have that memory of him stumbling backward when he was very old already and not in good shape, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that was the 2001 All Star game, I believe, when Ripken homered, right?
Was that Cal's? Yeah, man, all those memories. And then A Rod pushed Cal over to short. And then whoever was pitching basically grooved a fastball to Cal so he could hit a home run. And a lot of people were mad about it, but it's the All Star game, so who cares? It was cool.
Yeah, it was Vladimir Guerrero's Jr.'s dad who threw the bat at Tommy Lasorda.
Vlad Jr.'s dad. otherwise known as Hall of Famer Vlad Guerrero. I was at that game against the O's years ago when he was with Anaheim, and he hit a ball that bounced for a single into like left center. I don't even remember who was pitching, but it landed probably a foot in front of the plate, and he swung at it because that's kind of what he did, and it was a hit. And I was there. It was pretty weird.
He went into the Hall of Fame wearing an Angels hat on his plaque. I don't think that's the team I would have picked for him.
Maybe they gave him the most money.
Yeah, I think it was in his contract. Actually, I could be wrong. Plus, the Expos don't exist anymore, which might have had something to do with it.
I guess, yeah, not like a Nationals hat, huh? That would have been silly. They're not. He never played for them. But yeah, the Angels gave him by far the most money. He's also an Orioles legend. We forget in 2011.
Yeah, 1 year, right?
1 year, he played a whole. Well, he played 145 games for them. I actually was thinking it was less than that. 13 homers, 63 RBIs. He did manage a 290 batting average, but only a 317 OBP. And that was his last hurrah.
Yeah, I remember he couldn't move that well.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, back to the modern Orioles, huh?
Yeah, we had a couple retirements this week. Did you see that?
Chirinos.
Yep.
Who else?
Matt Harvey.
Oh, yeah. I did see that. I forgot he was an Oriole. I actually brought him up recently because I mentioned how I saw him pitch in college, but I guess I didn't realize that he hadn't retired already.
I saw him pitch with the Tides. I was surprised last year. It shows how well the Orioles did last year, where they signed Harvey and he had to serve that suspension. And I figured they just wanted him around to eat innings again. But since they were so good last year, they didn't even need him.
Yeah, and looking back at Harvey's career, he had a reputation as like a really good pitcher for a while, and he really only had one good season with the Mets. I guess a couple, but he was an all-star one time at the age of 24, and then I feel like he kind of carried that reputation throughout the rest of his career.
Yeah, he got a lot of mileage out of his name that he didn't particularly earn.
Right. If he did that in Cincinnati, then nobody would have cared about him.
Never. He had a good World Series start, and then they left him in against the Royals. They brought him back out for the ninth, and it might have been Game 7, and then they lost.
Yeah, I just remember that year as the year the Royals absolutely ran over the O's. Or was that the year after?
I think the Royals won
I
the
think they won
second World Series
I think they
that they
won the
played
year
in.
after they crushed the O's in the ALCS. I think they lost to the Giants. And then
Then they beat the
next
Mets.
year, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking at least.
Seeing the Royals this week, it's hard to believe they ever made a World Series in the last 10 years.
Right. Well, speaking of the Royals, do you want to get into Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesday. Our first start was Tyler Wells versus Ryan Yarbrough.
Yeah, and I had a note that Yarbrough struck out the first three batters in the first inning, who are all righties. He's a lefty. He had 17 Ks in 17 innings going into the game. Then he started the second with two more strikeouts to get the first five, and he had no hits through 3 innings. So my note here is that the O's had him looking like Tom Glavine, but if Tom Glavine was Pedro starting the 99 All-Star game.
So Jim DeShays came up on our last episode, and we brought up that he previously held the record of starting a game with 8 straight strikeouts.
Hmm.
So I looked it up. The record had since been tied by Herman Marquez in 2018, DeGrom in 2014, and then the record was broken on July 11th, 2021 by Pablo Lopez with 9. And
Huh.
then, yeah, Yarbrough started this game out with 5, and he tied the Royals record.
Yeah, I didn't realize Pablo Lopez had broken the record. I know he's been traded to Minnesota and has started out well, and I think they already extended him after like a month there. So they must like what they see too.
Yeah, he was somebody Orioles fans were pining for over the offseason.
Yeah, and in hindsight, that sounds like a good idea based on how their starters have done this year.
Yeah, we could use somebody.
Yeah, so Yarbrough started out well, but then the wheels fell off. Overall, Tyler Wells I thought was pretty mediocre, and Bobby Witt hit a leadoff homer against him. Um, I'm sure you're aware, but for those who don't know, Witt was the second pick in 2019 behind Agley. And then MJ Melendez homered to make it 3-0. And I felt like those two, Witt and Melendez, were good for the entire series.
Yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. got a new fan this week. That dude's awesome. I hope he can stay in Kansas City and make something work there.
Depends if they pay up, right? If they do like the Braves, as we'll get into, who've extended a lot of their young core players, and I don't see why not.
The Royals came into the game averaging 3.3 runs a game, and they immediately got 3 runs off Wells in the first inning.
Yeah, things weren't looking too good. But then in the fourth, Agley and Mountcastle combined to cut the lead to one when Mountcastle hit a homer, and then they did the same thing in the fifth to make it 7-3. So between the two of them, they had 7 hits and 6 RBIs in that game.
The Royals also came into the series 1-12 at home.
Really, that's brutal. I didn't know that. 1-12. Well, they did end up leaving the series with 2-14, if I'm doing my math correctly. So that's still pretty bad, but at least they added to their win total.
And we've brought up Justin Turner's pine tar back a couple times this season, but we've never discussed James McCann's helmet.
I think he's what's that? Like Manny Ramirez used to do, kind of grabbing the helmet and adjusting it all the time after you get the pine tar all over your hands from the bat.
So McCann started the season a little bit late because he was on the injured list, and yeah, he didn't earn all that dirt on that helmet because his first game, that helmet, you could tell he just caked it on there.
Maybe he just likes the look. He's also got those tight sleeves on his jersey to show off the guns. I think he just likes that gritty strongman look. I don't know what else to call it.
Speaking of catchers on the Orioles, they traded for one this week.
Yeah, has he played yet?
No,
Torrens?
I thought he would be in the lineup today, but
It
he
was
wasn't.
interesting to me that they traded for a guy that they haven't yet played in a week's time. There's got to be some plan in place, though.
Yeah, everyone's scratching their head about it. They officially, they gave up cash for him, but they essentially lost Joey Crable. They had to DFA him. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up.
Now, how does that work? Does he have to get claimed by somebody in a certain amount of time, or is he with Norfolk, or is he just kind of a free agent now?
Yeah, so if he goes unclaimed, he'll become a free agent, and then maybe the Orioles will decide to bring him back. But then they'd have to get rid of somebody else, which wouldn't make
Right.
any sense. And then O'Hearn got optioned to make room for Torrens on the major league roster.
Yeah, I have a note later about somebody I think O'Hearn should kind of come up for, but we can get into that in a bit. What else you got on Tuesday? It was an 11-7 victory, by the way. So despite the good start by Yarbrough and Wells not starting well, the Orioles were able to turn the tables.
Yeah, I have Hayes was 0 for 6 with 4 strikeouts in his only game of the series, and he's still wearing a glove on his hand after being hit by that on that bunt attempt.
Yeah, and then he had a questionable tag up today to get thrown out at third in extra innings. But again, I'll save that for later. all these fresh memories in my head. I want to talk about them, but then I know we're gonna get to it. So
And then the only thing to finish up for me is the 3 stars. Number one, Mountcastle, 3 for 6, 5 RBI, 2 home run. The second home run went 433 feet. Number two, Cedric Mullins had maybe the catch of the year, and he went 1 for 3 with 2 RBI, where he almost went head first into the bottom of the wall. It was incredible.
right.
And then number three, we have Melanie Newman's jacket.
Oh, the white one. I saw that. That
Yeah,
was
that
like
got
one
a
of
lot
those
of love.
'80s like the satin bomber jacket style kind of, right?
Yeah, she said she got it in the team store. That many people were asking about it. She had to like make a statement.
It does look cool. I bet you in the team store those are like $200 too. I have a few other notes. I thought Gunnar had a good game overall. He had 3 walks. He had a great diving play to get Olivares at second in the fourth, or for the second out of the fourth. Sorry, and he also had a great hustle home from second to score on the aforementioned Cedric Mullins single. And I thought Mateo was good. He did get thrown out trying to steal third. That was surprising, but got to give credit to Salvador Perez there. And there were 2 walks after that, so Mateo would have scored if he wasn't thrown out. But he did end up driving in the 10th run with his speed. That was an easy double play for most runners, but he beat it out. Another thing you didn't mention is the
Yeah, I have
epic
one
at
more.
bat from Anthony
Mm-hmm.
Santander.
Yeah, 16 pitches. That's crazy. And then I also have written down he hit 2 Kansas City catchers with his backswing. He had such a long swing.
Yeah, I feel like eventually as a catcher, you got to get kind of mad at somebody who does that. It's like move up in the box or learn how to not finish like that, I guess.
Yeah, 16 pitches. That has to be exhausting for the pitcher.
Right. I mean, 16 pitches for a lot of innings are 16 pitches, and he ended up hitting a single too. So that was a very good productive at bat for Santander. And Cano did end up allowing his first hit in this game on an old Baltimore chop, which I thought was fitting. Somebody just smacked one straight into the ground that went up into the air, and they couldn't get him at first. But other than that, an 11-7 victory on Tuesday. That's all I got.
Yep, that's all I got. So we're on to Wednesday.
Wednesday was a stinker.
Yeah, the highlight of the game for the Orioles was probably Kyle Stowers' 99-mile-per-hour outfield assist.
100%. I agree with that. That was really cool. I think I've mentioned on here before that throws from the outfield are my favorite plays in baseball, and that was a perfect throw. Um, I thought it was interesting that Greinke was dominating the O's. He had 44 pitches through 5 innings, and then he came out. And the next day, the Orioles broadcast at least said there wasn't an injury or anything. But I also saw that he's thrown at least 80 pitches on 4 different occasions this year, and he had only allowed 3 hits with 0 walks through 5 innings. So I found that very curious, but I guess you can't go back and second guess them because they still won the game.
Yeah, it's cool to see him back in Kansas City. He's had kind of a fascinating career.
He's apparently a pretty fascinating guy too, like kind of an odd duck. I don't know much about him.
Yeah, me either. Um, did you see Kyle Isbell foul a ball into his own face?
I think I missed that. I think I remember them mentioning it, but somehow didn't see that play.
Yeah, he got bloodied. They came out and glued him together. And then Mullins had another great catch, but he got to stay on his feet this time.
Yeah, didn't he? He won the Gold Glove last year, right? Or was he a finalist?
I don't remember.
I think he's been in the final 3 or something. I mean, he's a very good fielder, and it's kind of what you would expect for somebody with his speed in center field. To go back to the Orioles pitching, though, we mentioned Greinke, but Gibson on the other side was good and efficient through 6 innings. He only allowed 2 runs on 60 pitches, but then the wheels came off. His final line was 6.2 with 6 earned, 10 hits, no walks, and no strikeouts. So that seventh inning just crushed him.
Yeah, no strikeouts, especially after he had 11 the previous start. Yeah, that I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, and we were kind of mentioning that Sale on the Sox had done the same against the O's and how poor that looked on him. And Gibson went out and did that against Kansas City. And then at the same time, the offense didn't help. The O's had one extra base hit, and it was a double in the ninth inning. They had one walk as a whole team with only 6 hits. Another note I had for the Royals is that Vinny Pasquantino is an objectively cool name. And not surprisingly, he did play for Team Italy in the World Baseball Classic with a name like that. And he was 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and basically could have won that game single handedly.
Yeah, I have his Pasquatch as my number one star of the game.
Is that what they call him?
Yeah, the Pasquatch.
Is that why they had the Sasquatch walking around in the outfield?
Yeah, I guess anytime he gets on base, that guy comes out. So that'd be a good gig.
That makes sense. I did not put 2 and 2 together, or maybe they mentioned it and I didn't hear it, but I saw that and was like, "What is that? What is the reason for that Yeti walking around in center field?"
And then the Royals got to have some fun at the Orioles' expense, where Amir Garrett moonwalked after finishing one of the innings.
What were your thoughts on that?
Oh, it's fine. Like if you dish it, you should be able to take it. The Royals have very little to celebrate, so have at it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Baker did it on Tuesday, and they even asked him about it. Like, do you know Amir Garrett? And he said no, but they asked if he had any problem with it, and he said no. I think Baker was having fun, and Garrett was doing the same. So I didn't think anything of it. Thought it was neat.
And then my other two stars were the kebab kids. Did you see them bring some kebabs out to those kids?
The like chocolate strawberry ones.
Yeah, but the one kid in particular, he had a hat that is to die for. I'm a hat freak. I have over 50 Tides New Era fitteds alone.
50 of just the Tides.
Just the Tides and all their alternate brands. It used to not be a problem when they would only put out like one new hat, but now that they've realized suckers like me will pretty much buy any hat they put out. So now I'm getting like 5, 6 new Tides hats every year. It's a problem.
That's a
I had to
lot.
buy a dress.
I'm surprised they even have that many to release. 50's a ton.
Yeah, now they do. You have your standard home, road, and alternate, and then they usually have 2 or 3 alternate brands throughout the season. Then they do the Mother's Day hat, the Father's Day hat, the July 4th hat. I'm sure I'm missing one.
And
Like
do
just
you
this year alone, they were the Norfolk Lumpia already.
and you showed me what that is. That's like a Filipino thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you get the Mother's Day and Father's Day and July 4th hat every year?
Yeah, even if I don't like them.
I guess you are a sucker if you're buying things you don't even like.
Yeah, a couple years ago they were the Norfolk Coffee, and they put out a hot coffee hat and an iced coffee hat. And I hate coffee. I don't drink it. I never drink it. I drank it maybe once or twice in my life, and I bought both coffee hats.
Now, is coffee like a thing down there? What made them do that?
Yeah, they're trying to say it is, but no one has ever heard of it being a thing here. They put out the statement like Norfolk is a hub for uh, shipping and receiving lots of coffee beans, but no one ever heard of it.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. Was it had to do something with the port or something?
Yeah. But yeah, so the one kebab kid had a strawberry lemonade Orioles 5950 fitted hat, and
And you went out and
he
found it
bet
online and bought it.
no, but he better watch out if I see him walking through the parking lot or something.
Just steal it and run.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the third star is the pitch clock, because this mercifully kept this horrible game under 2 hours.
Yeah, that was my last note. I said, on the bright side, at least this game was short because it sucked for the O's. So let's move on from Wednesday.
On to
Thursday,
Thursday.
final game of the series in Kansas City. Going into the series, as I've asked you a couple times before, what would you expect from the O's in the 3 games?
I would have picked a split or a sweep. Yeah, I was looking for a sweep here.
Yeah, I think against a team like Kansas City, you can count on that. But especially after losing that second game, the O's had to win the third, I thought. And they ended up doing that in an insane game with a final score of 13-10 on May the 4th. I do have to give myself a pat on the back using our. If you haven't looked at the Twitter account for those listening, at Bird Notice Pod on Twitter, I tweeted, "May the fourth batter hit some dongs," because it was May 4th and people were doing all the May the 4th silly things. I'm not into Star Wars at all. I know nothing about it. But then
Yeah, me either.
Santander, who was the fourth batter, hit a 2-run homer in the first. So it worked. And I'm going to take credit for it, even though I had absolutely nothing to do with that actually happening.
You did though. You used the force to summon a Santander home run, and he needed some help after you named him the biggest disappointment in April, and apparently he took that personally.
Yeah, just because I said he was disappointing didn't mean I enjoyed him being disappointing. I wanted him to play better, and he definitely did this week, so I can't complain.
My April disappointment also homered in this game off Jordan Lyles, and I gotta give hats off to Jordan Lyles. This is why I liked him so much. He was getting his ass kicked, and he kept going out there inning after inning until he finally settled down. Yeah, he's a bulldog. Would you rather have Jordan Lyles or Cole Irvin?
I mean, a pitcher in the majors or a guy in AAA? I
Well, I
guess
guess
I'd take
Cole
the guy in the
Irvin.
majors.
Yeah, I guess Cole Irvin's benefit is his contract, and he had an option. Amazingly, but
No, I
even
mean,
Lyles, they could have walked away after the season.
hindsight's 2020, right? If I could
Mm-hmm.
say we'll keep our prospect who has a good chance of not becoming anything in the majors and having Jordan Lyles around, or getting rid of the prospect and having a guy who was immediately sent down to AAA, then I definitely go with Jordan Lyles. But who would have known that going in, right?
Hey, that prospect's going to be a star for the Las Vegas Athletics in a couple of years.
He might be. He might look back at like what was it? James Shields got traded to the White Sox
Oh
for
my God.
Fernando Tatis Jr. Wouldn't be one of those deals. I hope not, but you never know.
Oof.
Anyways, yeah, so Santander hit a 2-run homer in the first. Mullins had a bases clearing double to make it 5-0, and then Gunnar hit a homer, drove in Mateo to make it an 8-1 lead in the third. So at this point, it's like, all right, the O's are going to kind of coast to a victory and wrap up this series.
So Mellen's career with the bases loaded, he's hitting 385, 2 grand slams. He's now only 23 grand slams behind Alex Rodriguez for the most all time.
Did
And
he
then
really hit
2020,
25 grand slams?
yeah, that's what I've
Jeez.
written down. And then 2023 with the runners in scoring position, he's hitting 462, a 611 OBS, and that double he would have hit would have been out in 20 of 30 stadiums.
Hey, there's a reason Mullins was an all-star. I like him a lot. He's been very solid this year, and he helped get that huge lead. But then we got to the pitching. I mean, this was a Grayson game. He wasn't very good against a team that isn't very good. Our boy CNL Perez also wasn't good. Brian Baker, who has been good this year, was also pretty bad.
Righties are batting 552 off CNL Perez, 16 for 29. And that was as of then. It's probably worse now. That was as of Thursday.
Right. Well, speaking of lefties against righties, we'll get to that in a couple of games. But Coulomb came in, got 2 outs with the bases loaded in the sixth to stop the bleeding, And then Yennier Cano was enormous again. That guy's awesome. Continues to be the best reliever. I don't care what MLB says.
We had a major league debut in this game too. Did you see that? The Kansas City reliever Austin Cox.
Yeah, he was their best reliever that game. 2
Yeah, two
scoreless
innings
innings.
pitched. Yep, one walk, one strikeout. And then I have written down that O's outscored the Royals in the series 24-22, which is a little too close.
Yeah, and speaking of relievers, let me pull it up here. The O's faced 2 power left-handers on the Royals in Amir Garrett and Aroldis Chapman. Now, granted, the two of them are not what they used to be, but between those two guys, hold on, I'm slowing us down. They threw 1.1 innings, 5 earned runs, 4 hits, 5 walks, 1 strikeout, 1 balk by Chapman, 1 wild throw to first, saved by the second baseman by Garrett. Like, they absolutely collapsed. We talked about the O's bullpen not being very good, but they were brutal.
Yeah, there's no coming back from that. Did you see so this was also Grayson's first start without Adley Rutschman behind the plate.
Yeah, you wonder how much that has an effect on a pitcher, and I don't know without asking one, but you would think a veteran like McCann would be able to pick it up pretty quickly and be able to help Grayson. So I'm not going to put that on the catcher. I think it just wasn't a very good outing.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. He gave up 3 home runs and 3 and 2/3, 6 earned. And then Isbell was involved in this again. He had a suicide squeeze with runners on the corners and no one out to tie the game, and he pulled his hamstring running to first.
Yeah, that was a great play, and then obviously pulled up lame. And speaking of bunting, I thought Frazier had a great one in the ninth, and he also started the eighth after walking um, against Chapman. Then had that balk that moved him over, and then he stole third. So I did mention last episode I thought Frazier kind of comes up in the big moments, and he did in this one.
Yeah, I have written down for in my notes later on in the week that Frazier's a pest on the base paths. Like he takes big ass leads. He runs hard. He beat out a throw today at first base on that double play.
I
He
think
had
he
to bring
beat
that
out a
up.
couple in the last 2 games. I think yesterday he had an RBI from beating out a double play, and then again today he kept an inning alive. He's just got that veteran savvy, He might not have the good numbers to back it up, but he's probably a good clubhouse presence and definitely knows what he's doing out there in the field.
So Bobby Witt Jr. made me look up Bobby Witt, his father's career. I remember him as basically like a guy who would go like 12-12 every year. But yeah, he was traded on August 31st, 1992 with Jeff Russell and Ruben Sierra for Jose Canseco.
Oh, interesting.
And Canseco was a megastar at the time. And what caught my attention about that trade, though, is that it was August 31st, not July 31st. So that was a waiver trade where the Athletics had to place Canseco on waivers, and every team could have put a claim on him, and the Rangers did. And then they worked out the trade.
Nobody wanted him, huh? For
I
that,
remember
for probably his salary.
I don't know what team put him on waivers because he kind of bounced around at the end. The Yankees claimed him because they were afraid the Red Sox were going to claim him, and then they got stuck with him.
Huh. I'm looking up Bobby Witt now that you mentioned him. He's interesting. He was born in Arlington, Virginia, which is basically D.C., and then he was drafted out of Canton High School in Canton, Mass. So my good friends Murph and Maddie live in Canton. Shout out to them. Didn't know Bobby Witt played high school ball outside of Boston. It's kind of funny. But then he ended up going to the University of Oklahoma, played most of his career in Texas. And I know Bobby Witt Jr. Grew up in Colleyville, which is in the Dallas metro area somewhere. I can't say I know exactly where, but fun facts if you were wondering where Bobby Witt is from, which probably nobody was.
And then, have you ever been to Kauffman Stadium?
No, that's actually one I've been thinking about for a while. I've heard Kansas City's pretty cool. They've obviously got a ballpark I need to go to, but they also have the Negro League Museum, Actually, since I brought that up, we could talk about a little snafu for the A's broadcaster this week.
Oof.
Or not. And then they also have apparently a really good World War One museum. And then there's the whole Kansas City barbecue. So I do definitely want to get up there at some point, but I have not been. That's a very long way of saying no, I haven't been there. I could have just said that.
They're working on a new downtown stadium. I don't know anything about it other than that. But so you might be running out of time.
I mean, that's fine. I don't. I'm not. My goal someday is to go to a game in every team's stadium. I don't really care which version I go to, you know.
Okay.
But I do know that the current one's out east of the city on the map next to the football stadium. And it does look like a bit of a hike from downtown, maybe like 15, 20 minutes. And I'm a big advocate of having stadiums in more convenient locations. So that would be fine by me.
That's all I got on the Royals. You got anything else?
No, I'm good. Good to move on to the Braves on Friday. This was a fun series because this was really the first really good team that the O's were playing this year, and it was nice to not be facing, Detroit or Boston or Kansas City again, and somebody where you can say, all right, how do the O's stack up against, the Braves could be at the end, they could win the World Series. It wouldn't be surprising at all, I don't think.
No, that looks like a nice stadium. The Braves fans are coming out. That thing was packed the entire weekend.
Yeah, I mean, and rightfully so. They're very good, and watching them is fun. And Friday's game was probably my favorite game so far this season. What do you think?
Yeah, it felt like a playoff game. It was Dean Kramer versus Max Fried. I looked up Max Fried because I heard them mention he was acquired from the Padres, who tra- who traded him for Justin Upton, who spent 1 year for them. I'm kind of tired of the Padres. They're like the Cleveland Browns of baseball to me. Where they remember a few years ago the Browns went all in and didn't do anything, and they got a bunch of media preseason hype.
I don't know. I wouldn't call them the Browns, and then the Padres at least have real talent. The Browns have never really. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't call them that. I see what you're saying because they haven't proven
Yeah,
anything
just from the
yet, but
preseason hype.
yeah.
Yeah. Eh,
Well, one interesting thing about Max Fried, it's a fact I'd heard before, but I just looked up again to confirm. He played in high school with Jack Flaherty of the Cardinals and Lucas Giolito of the White Sox. They all went to Harvard Westlake High School in LA. So those are probably some ridiculously good teams. But coming into this game, his ERA was 0.45 and Dean Kramer's was a robust 6.67. So on paper, it was like, well, Braves are going to win this one. How bad is it going to be? But baseball's funny, so you never know.
Yeah, it worked out. Max Fried helped the Orioles out with two errant throws, one on the pickoff where McKenna went first to third and then scored on a gunner ground out.
Mm-hmm. He channeled his inner John Lester on that one. That was bad.
And then Santander hit his second home run in 2 games and later added a grand slam in the seventh.
Yeah, he had 2 homers, including the grand slam, as you mentioned. Mullins hit a homer. And then right after Mullins' homer, I thought McKenna had a really nice bunt. You don't really expect that after a home run. And I thought that was a good time to do it. And he was obviously able to beat it out.
Yeah, McKenna gets way too much hate. He's a good ball player, and they feel comfortable using him late in games. Uh, yeah, and he's actually hitting above his projections, I guess would be the word. Yeah, he gets way he gets way too much hate. And I feel like that drop ball in Boston in the beginning of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if that helped with team chemistry. It might have brought them together a little bit faster than it could have taken.
Yeah, you could be right. I mean, a little adversity early on usually is a good way to galvanize the team. And I think if he didn't drop that ball to lose a game, which was very bad, but if he didn't do that, I don't think anybody would be thinking that Ryan McKenna shouldn't be on the roster. And honestly, that's probably a minority of fans who are just very vocal about it because especially as a defensive replacement and a guy who can run the bases and plays hard. I have nothing wrong with him.
Plus, they're just pining for the prospects.
Right, right. But I mean, yeah, he was good and effective. And we have to talk about Kramer with that huge ERA going into the game. His final line was 6 innings with 1 earned run, 6 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. So the Braves were hitting the ball, but he was able to keep it in the ballpark for the most part and not allow any big damage. And Max Fried, as you said, made 2 bad throws and helped the O's win this game, I'd say pretty improbably.
Yeah, I like seeing Dean Kramer settle in. Um, somebody needs to step up in that rotation between Bradish, Grayson, and Kramer.
Yeah. I mean, Kramer did this time, but it seems like the way all 3 of those guys have pitched, next week it'll be another one, but only one. And then the next week it'll be the other guy who didn't.
Yeah.
It would be nice if they all 3 could string together a good start in a row, but it is what it is. I thought the home plate umpire's strike zone was kind of all over the place in this game for both teams. It was kind of frustrating to watch as a fan. That strike zone they show on the TV screen isn't always 100% accurate, but there were some balls that were clearly not on the plate that they were getting strikes on for both teams.
So I guess I can get into this now. I was at the Tides game today, and before the game, they made an announcement that this was an ABS challenge game, which I had never experienced
Yeah,
before.
explain that because I don't know either. I'm going to say automated ball and strike system. That'd be
Yeah.
two
Okay,
S's
here it
though.
is. Ball and strike calls will be made by the home plate umpire. Each team is allowed 3 opportunities to challenge the ball or strike call made by the home plate umpire using an automated system. Basically, you get 3 challenges, and you can keep using them until you're wrong, and then once you 3 strikes and you're out, essentially. But it was interesting. So Westberg challenged the call, and it was upheld. And then the next pitch, it was a full count, and called third strike, and he was out. He challenged it, and I was like, "This is dumb. This is taking way too long. We already put in all these time-saving practices, and now we're challenging balls and strikes left and right." They challenged it, and it was overturned, and the crowd went nuts. It was it was really fun, and he went to first base, and the next batter was Ryan O RBI, and he drove in Colton Cowser.
Nice. Now, does the player challenge
So I
it, or are you just saying he was
yeah,
up, or does the manager do it, or how's that work?
the only people who can challenge it are the pitcher, the catcher, and the batter.
Oh, wow. So you're putting a
Yeah,
lot
so
of
I need to
faith in your
see
players to not waste challenges, huh?
right, and there was quite a few throughout the game. I need to see more of it. I don't want to say I hate it. I don't want to say I like it, but it was definitely interesting.
So is it like
And
tennis kind of where they have that system that just tracks where the ball went exactly and they just review that?
yeah, they put it up on the scoreboard like they do for the TV with the box that looks like a tic-tac-toe board, and
Mm-hmm.
it shows the ball coming in, and it's exciting when somebody challenges it and they show that the ball coming in real slow into the box. And yeah, when
And
it's
then the crowd
overturned, people like
reacts
giving the
as the ball
umpire.
crosses the plane of that box.
Yeah, everyone wants to boo the umpire.
Right.
But yeah, it's coming to a ballpark near you.
Huh. I thought you were going to say it was going to be fully called by computers, and then because I've heard of other minor leagues where the home plate umpire just has an earpiece and it tells that umpire whether it's a ball or a strike, so they're not calling any balls or strikes. And I feel like at that point you can't challenge anything they say, which would be kind of nice for the umpire, and they still need to be there for plays at the plate or foul balls and things like that.
Yeah, so when I go to the games by myself, I go in and out of the radio broadcast, and this came up on the broadcast where so far all the coaches, managers, and players, they like this challenge system because then it's still a human element to the game.
Sure,
But yeah, who knows where this is going?
I get that, but on the other hand, I've always thought if you can get 100% accuracy why wouldn't you go for that?
especially with everyone developing gambling addictions.
Yeah, I mean that's
Did you see the Alabama head coach?
I read an article about it. Yeah, that he got fired because what were they saying? He was like feeding information to gamblers based on his pictures or something. Is that what they're accusing him
Something
of
like
at
that.
least?
Yeah, all the reporting I've seen is kind of vague. But yeah, his career's over, even if he's innocent, because his name's just been trampled.
Yeah, what I heard was that they had like a late change, um, a late scratch for a starting pitcher, and then there was suddenly a bunch of bets for LSU. I think they were playing, right?
Yeah, I don't even know, but
Yeah,
it's
I
not good.
mean it's inevitable that that's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, that's all I have for Friday.
Yeah, the only other note I have, and he appeared again today, but I wrote down on Friday that I feel like Jesse Chavez has been around forever, and he's always on a different team whenever I notice him. And I looked him up today, and he's been around since 2008, which is really long. He's played 16 years with like 9 different teams. So he's one of those guys, since he's a middle reliever, he's not a starter or a closer. I just kind of forget about him. And then all of a sudden, oh, Jesse Chavez is coming in for the 8th inning. I'm like, what? That guy still plays? So
Yeah,
that's
last I
all.
remember him, he was a Twin.
Yeah, he's played for, let's go through this. He played for Atlanta, Oakland, Texas, Kansas City, Pittsburgh, Chicago Cubs, Angels, Blue Jays, Dodgers. So he hasn't played for the
Oh,
Twins.
so I don't know who I'm thinking about then.
I don't know. But yeah, that was just kind of funny. When he came in the game, I was like, whoa, he's still here. Okay. But anyways, that's all I got on Friday. It was an exciting game, my favorite game of the year. The O's, I would call it an upset because they had a relatively lousy pitcher going against a really good one on the road. So that was fun.
Saturday, we got the Fox game of the week with Jason Benetti and AJ Pierzynski on the call.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I missed this one for the listeners. I was out for my wife's birthday, so happy birthday to her again. But I did see the highlights and saw that the O's ended up losing. Not terribly surprising going in again based on the pitching matchup. Of the 3 starting pitchers that Atlanta had going in this series, Strider had the in quotes worst ERA at 2.57 before this game started. He was also 4-0 with 57 strikeouts in 35 innings. So it was going to be a tall task, and they did hit him a little bit, but didn't come out on top in the end.
Yeah, they were able to make him throw a lot of pitches and bounce him after the 5th, but yeah, he was really good. He had an awkward balk that you might have missed since you didn't see it because it wouldn't appear in the
I
highlights.
did see.
It almost
I
looked like
saw the
he,
highlight. He kind of like stumbled, and his push off foot from the rubber slipped or something, right?
yeah, it's kind of scary almost the way he reached down. He just thought he might have popped something, but yeah, he was fine.
You know, I like the way he pitches. The dude has enormous legs, and he really gets his body out in front. It just looks very. I don't know if it's his mustache, but it just looks very old school to me. Or maybe it's like a new school driveline mechanics type deal. But he just looks very powerful and efficient in his windup, and then he throws like 98. So I guess it works.
Yeah, he's somebody. I'm sure the Braves fans love to watch it. Baltimore could use a guy like him.
Yeah, right. It looked like Bradish was okay. I mean, he had 3 runs over 5 innings, which isn't great, but he didn't blow it. 5 hits, 2 walks, 4 Ks on 86 pitches.
So something concerning with him the last 2 starts is he's cruising until he gets to about 70 pitches, and then Pierzynski mentioned it. As the game goes on, he's falling behind more and more. Yeah, it just seems like once he gets in the 4th or 5th, he just starts laboring, and he looks just confused, and he can't get anybody out, and the innings just drag on.
I'm
He's truly a Jekyll and Hyde pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to question his conditioning, but I don't know why else you'd suddenly hit a wall at that point in the game, right?
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Maybe they should pair
That's a
him
good
with
point.
DL Hall, and they can each give you like 3 or 4 innings. I did see the.
I wouldn't be
Go
surprised.
ahead.
I was going to say the future of baseball probably is just 3 innings, 3 innings, 3 innings for pitchers. You just have 3 guys throw 3 innings.
Right, and they go 3 innings like every third day. I'm kind of surprised that hasn't happened. I mean, Tampa's kind of on the forefront of things like that, and they do the opener thing, and I mean, they've been great this year. I don't know how often they're doing the opener anymore, but it's a thing they've done in the past at least. I mean, things change eventually, right? Things evolve. Nothing says you have to have a 5-man rotation either. You go 6, you could do 4, you could do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's probably why they're testing out that double hook DH thing we mentioned a few episodes ago.
I did see that there was kind of a role reversal in the bullpen in this game where Perez got the job done, but then Baker and Coulomb couldn't hold the lead. I did watch that. I got home and saw that the O's had a lead in the 8th inning and promptly turned it on as soon as Pilar came up against Coulomb and hit a bomb to left field.
Yeah, Pilar, I didn't know he played for them. He's on his 7th team since 2019.
7 teams since 2019. That's pretty crazy.
The story of
Well,
this
I remember
game,
him as a Blue Jay, really.
yeah. The story of this game for me was Ramon Urias batting 9th and playing first base.
He played first. I did not notice that.
Yeah, his
How
first
was he?
time. He was really good. He was really good.
I would imagine. I mean, if he's used to playing third and second, you got that big old glove on. First base isn't that hard.
He had to use Mountcastle's glove because he didn't have a first base glove.
That reminds me of the first game of my JV baseball season. The coach put me at first base, and I literally had never played first base. And I had to borrow one of the coach's gloves because I was like, I don't have one of these. Why are you putting me here? Like, you need to you need to help me out a bit. I did see. Speaking of Adam Frazier earlier, he had 3 RBIs in pretty clutch situations. He had 2 RBIs with 2 outs in the 4th inning, and then, as we mentioned earlier, he beat out a double play in the 6th for another. So he played well, but again, 5-4 loss didn't matter in the end. I was surprised Coulomb gave up that home run. It was basically a fastball down the middle, and the Braves manager kind of won that because the O's put in Coulomb, and then they pinch hit their lefty. I think it was Rosario for a righty hitting Pilar, and that ended up being the ball game.
Yeah, this was Atlanta City Connect uniform game. They were too similar to their previous throwbacks. I thought they could have done more with that.
I don't think I even realized it was the City Connect because it did just look like the throwback, like, Hank Aaron, Dale Murphy era.
I think part of the problem with the City Connects is Major League Baseball takes itself too seriously, where the minor leagues, you can have something fun, but with the major leagues, it's just going to be either they suck or they're cool. There's really no middle ground.
Right.
I thought they could have done something, just put ATL across the front, or even Hot Atlanta would look cool.
They love putting the peach everywhere, right? Could have just done that.
And
I
then,
don't know.
Stowers made a great catch and left on a deep drive by Austin Riley with 2 on and no outs in the 5th.
Yeah, he's a good fielder. He's got a good arm. He just doesn't hit. I mean, I guess I'll bring it up now because I wrote the note today, but I just don't think he's ready for the big leagues right now. Like, he can play defense, he can hit AAA pitching, but he doesn't hit in the majors, and that's not a fault on him. He's still young. I just don't think he's ready yet.
Yeah, I saw somebody mention that they think he could be a 4A player, and I tend to agree. I don't want to give up on him. I do think he deserves a chance, but if they could trade him to a team like the Reds or something and maybe get a starting pitcher, I think you do it.
Yeah, I'd be for that, especially with guys like Kauser and Haskin, and probably some others that I'm not thinking of. Kerstad, they could definitely overcome losing Stowers, but he's a guy that I'm kind of confused why he's been in the lineup so much the last few games, because he doesn't offer much outside of defense. And I feel like McKenna plays just as good a D as he does and actually can hit the ball a little bit more. Not that he's phenomenal, but his numbers are better than Stowers.
I'm wondering if they're just giving him one last chance before they move on to the next round of people to get at bats for.
I suppose we'll see. We'll see what happens. Do you have any more on Saturdays? Since I didn't watch, you have any more notes?
Yeah, all I have left is Mullen leads the league in RBI from the 7th inning or later with 14. And
Nice.
Gunnar had a Brooks Robinson play in the 6th off Albies. And then Gunnar also had over 200 people at the game. I can't even name 200 people.
Right. Yeah, he's from Alabama, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
not super far from Atlanta. Like then I guess that would make it like the northeast part of Alabama over there. And Mullins is from Georgia, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think they mentioned. I know he played at I shouldn't say I know. I think he played at like Mercer? No, Campbell. Campbell University in North Carolina, but he went to high school in Snellville, Georgia. No clue where that is.
Does it say where he was drafted?
Mullins was drafted in the 13th round of the 2015 draft from Campbell University.
Yeah, not bad for a 13th rounder.
Yeah, very good for a 13th rounder, for sure.
Yeah, so
So should we move on to today's in the Central Time 10:30 a.m. start?
right, yeah, the Peacock game. Do you have a Peacock subscription?
No, but thankfully I saw that it was also airing on NBC, so I just watched it on there.
I could be wrong. I believe this is the only game that they're also airing on NBC. They're trying to drive Peacock subscriptions.
Yeah, and I know the O's are scheduled for two more of these Sundays. I think one in mid June and another early July, I want to say. I
I
did have Peacock a couple years ago for watching ski racing, which is like a very niche thing that they used to show on Peacock. It was more doable when I was on the East Coast, but now that I'm another hour behind, all those races are on at like 4 or 5 in the morning, and they're not even all on Peacock anymore. So it's just the U.S. ski team does a horrendous job of getting the races on TV. Like Michaela Schifrin is the best female skier of all time, and she's at her peak right now, and it's like impossible to watch, and it's very frustrating.
yeah, I have a Peacock subscription. I got a promo for a year, so I think I'm good till like September. I already clicked turn off auto renew.
Right, that's how they get. I just did that with Sirius XM radio. Like, make sure to call and cancel because they'll jack up the price, and then they'll just give you the same price again if you make sure to get in touch.
So this game was Tyler Wells versus Bryce Elder. Atlanta is came into the game 94-17 when scoring first since 2022.
Yeah, and I think Wells had another kind of typical Orioles start this year. He went only 5 innings and it took 96 pitches, but he ended up doing pretty well. Only allowed one run on 3 hits, one walk with 4 strikeouts. I did think the O's squandered an opportunity with the bases loaded and one out in the third, but then Mountcastle and Gunnar both struck out to kill it.
Yeah, so I went to the Tides game today. I didn't think I was going to be able to watch this game, but since there was only 9 total hits, I was able to skim it and get pretty much everything. Um, I saw Austin Riley was mic'd up, and that was a disaster. I don't even think they got to talk to him really.
No, I don't think he could hear anything. It was terrible. It's a good idea. I know ESPN has done it and it works. That for some reason it just didn't work there.
Yeah, it was cool in the All Star game last year.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's a good idea, and it's one of those things baseball needs to do to kind of modernize and bring itself into the 21st century as far as accessibility and media goes. But um, yeah, this game was exciting. As you mentioned, there were only 9 hits. It was really long for a relatively uneventful game, though. It was, I think, over 3 hours.
Yeah, I think it said 3:39 on the time bar, which doesn't include pregame and a little bit of postgame.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was surprised I was able to get through it and see as much as I did. The Peacock broadcast last year, they had an announcerless game. Did you happen to catch that?
No, I did not.
I watched a good chunk of
I don't
it.
know if I would like that. That's one of those things, though. I actually do that. I'll put something on mute and like put it on my iPad and then watch something else with the sound on or like play video games or something. So I could deal with that, I think.
Yeah, from like 2018 to 2021, I pretty much watched the Orioles on mute on my iPad. I was watching something else.
I mean, that's why having sports on in a bar or something is good because you don't have to hear it to see what's going on. But you can't watch a movie or a show and not hear what they're saying. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I kind of liked the announcerless broadcast last year. I don't think I'd want to watch it like that frequently, but the one time thing, it was pretty cool. And then I like the idea of them taking one broadcaster from each team. Um, don't get me wrong, it was bad, but there was a casualness to the conversation I found interesting. It seems like it was like a working day off for Ben and Andrew Jones.
Yeah, I definitely like the idea. I also like that, Ben McDonald's a pitcher, Andrew Jones obviously was a center fielder, so you have those two different perspectives. I do think Andrew Jones should be in the Hall of Fame, which I think is kind of a current debate. I know that there's analytics and such that say he shouldn't, but I think if he's a guy that if he was eligible like 30 years ago would have been voted in like the first or second ballot because overall the guy finished his career with 434 home runs, 1289 RBIs. His average season per 162 games was 32 homers, 95 RBIs, and 11 steals. And he was the best center fielder in the game for like 10 years. So I was a big fan of his, even though I'm not a Braves fan. I feel like he belongs there, but I can see the side saying he doesn't.
Yeah, he was definitely on the path. I don't know if I'd vote for him. I'd have to see the rest of the ballot. When he fell off, it was a drastic drop.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think he just had health issues. I mean, he played over 100 games one time in his last 5 seasons. Until then, he played over 150 every single year and had a low of 26 homers. So it's just like something happened at the age of 30 where he just got hurt all the time.
So last year the Orioles got to draft Jackson Holliday, and the number 2 overall pick was Drew Jones, Andrew's son. So I looked him up,
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that Jackson Holliday is cruising. He tore through the South Atlantic League. He's already up in Aberdeen. I looked up Drew Jones, see how he's doing. He's only played 10 games this season. He's currently on the injured list with a strained right quadriceps. Before getting injured, he was 7 for 40 with only one extra base hit.
I think he also got hurt last year after the draft, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember, because the O's were picking first, I remember reading a lot about the draft, and the O's weren't really letting on who they were going to choose, and oftentimes that's kind of settled before the draft happens. So I was surprised they took Holiday, but I mean, can't complain about how it's gone so far for sure.
Yeah, I had a hunch they were going to take Drew Jones. Yeah, Holiday looks great. I'm counting down the days till he's in Norfolk.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess as an O's fan, we've been in this spot before where there's a ton of good prospects. They showed that graphic today. It was kind of funny. It said farm to title, like farm to table, and it had the Astros in like 20, I don't know, 15 or something, and how their prospects led to a World Series. And then they had the Braves who ended up winning a World Series. And then they showed the Orioles prospects. And it's just like, that's a lot of pressure to put on them, and we haven't done anything yet as an as an organization.
And then today was supposed to be Adley's day off, but of course they couldn't leave him alone, and they had to have him pinch hit where he drew a walk to load the bases with 2 outs in the sixth. So bases loaded for Mullins. That's the guy you want up in that situation, and it just didn't work out. So that you can pinpoint that as a missed opportunity.
Right. I mean, he did make a great throw. It was kind of an interesting sequence where I want to say it was Michael Harris who stole second, and Agley didn't get him. But then the next batter hit like a dribbler right in front of the plate, and Agley threw to third to get him out. So I thought that was a cool throw. And then we mentioned earlier where Hayes tried to tag up from second. He started the inning in the, was it 12th,
Yeah.
maybe, on second base. And the first batter flew out to Acuna and right. And Acuna just hosed him at third. And that was a cool play. It sucked in as an Orioles fan, but that was fun.
Yeah, for the extra innings, I had written down that the Manfred man sometimes has the opposite effect of trying to shorten the games because it's so easy for the teams to score. There's more runs in the extra innings, and yeah, you mentioned Rutschman's throw and Acuna's throw, and then Arcia got Mateo at third on a Henderson ground out in the extras.
Yeah, I think bullpen ERAs are just never going to be the same now that they're charging earned runs for guys who start the inning on second base.
No, the Union had to fight for that. Those runs are unearned.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
That's my fault.
So
I'm looking at the box score and it clearly says runs 1, earned runs 0. So that's my fault.
I'm never gonna really call for like a player to be removed from the team, but if I had to pick one guy to go, it has to be CNL Perez. And I can't really blame him today because it is an unearned run, but
Yeah, I mean, when we have to talk about him getting out of an inning unscathed as like a highlight, he probably needs to something needs to change, right?
and then back to the bullpen. Matt Vasgersian mentioned on the broadcast that the 5 teams with the fewest bullpen innings all made the postseason last year, and the 2 fewest of those 5 made the World Series. And we know the way the Orioles bullpen usage is going right now.
Does that mean you need good starters to be a good baseball team?
Yeah, that'd be a place to start.
What a weird concept. Yeah. But speaking of the bullpen though, Voth did his job today. I mean, he pitched 2 innings with no runs, 2 Ks, no hits. That's a pleasant surprise because it seems like he's the right-handed Perez so far this year.
Yeah, he's quietly turned around his season. Yeah, he's dependable all of a sudden. And then the only other thing I have on this game is Mountcastle's 15-game streak of reaching base ended.
Yeah, he looked kind of lost at the plate today. I mean, it happens for everybody. So, not going to fault him for that. He's had an overall kind of streaky season, but he was on a good streak. Hopefully he starts another one soon. The only other note I had from this game was that since I called Santander my biggest disappointment on the season, he had 2 hits in literally every single game this week. And that included 2 doubles and 3 home runs. His average in a small sample size was raised 51 points just this week. So I'm happy for Santander to be playing better for sure.
Yeah, he's huge in the middle of the lineup, and it kind of sucked when he was like a black hole. They need him.
For sure. Especially batting from both
Yeah, they need
sides.
him.
All right, who are your 3
Oh,
stars for
okay.
this game then?
Yeah, I have number 3. I have the start time. I like the 11:35 start time. Yeah, if you can get the game over by
Okay.
2 o'clock and on with your day, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's like college
And then
football.
I have the Manfred man. I think it keeps extra innings tense. It's kind of like a power play in baseball. And number 1 was
Mhm.
Ben McDonald. What's up, Ben? We know you're listening. He liked one of our tweets.
Hello again, Ben McDonald. Still don't know if he's listening. It's a different thing. Be liking a tweet or actually listening, but either way, he did a good job. I thought
And
that
then
was cool.
I have the debut of a new segment. I'm going to call it Concourse Facts.
Let's hear it.
I'll start with this one. So there's signage around Harbor Park, and at the bottom of these ads is a random facts, usually about the Tides, the Orioles, or anything in Major League Baseball. This one is Brett Cumberland was hit by 28 pitches in 2021, setting the franchise's single season and career records. Do you remember Brett Cumberland?
I don't. I know Cumberland Farms.
Yeah, that counts. He was a catcher. He was nothing special, just AAA filler. But he liked to get hit by pitches.
Yeah, it looked like he was willing to do anything to get on base at least. What else you got? Anything else? I got a few random things I came across this week that are not O's related. But if you have anything that is,
Yeah, I guess I'll
fire away.
touch on the Tides real quick. I went to 3 games this week. The Oriole bird was in town today, so he migrated south. Connor Norby was the
Fun.
star of the weekend. He had back-to-back Sports Center highlights in the second inning at second base on Saturday night. And then Sunday, he hit a game-tying 2-run home run in the bottom of the ninth that sent the game into extra innings. And then the top of the 10th, with runners on first and second, he made a diving catch to end the inning. And one more
Very
note
nice.
for Tides Corner. The Tides are officially 20% of the way through their season, playing 30 of 150 games. Norfolk is crushing offensively, leading the league in runs with 215, average 298, and home runs 50. The Tides are on pace to score 1,075 runs, 235 doubles, 30 triples, 250 home runs, 650 walks, 130 stolen bases, and they are on pace for 110 and 40 record with 60 saves.
There was some crazy on pace for a number. That sounds like when a guy hits 2 home runs on opening day and he's on pace for like, was it
Yeah, that's why
324
those
or
numbers blew
something?
my mind, just because they're 30 games in and those numbers are still stupid.
Right, right. Well, speaking of crazy numbers, I'm reading a baseball book right now, and there was a stat talking about Tony Gwynn and how great of a hitter he was. It said he came to bat 323 times in his career against Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and Pedro Martinez. So 4 Hall of Famers. And Tony Gwynn struck out 3 times. So that's like if you double that, a whole season's worth of pitching or hitting only against those 4 guys, striking out 6 times. I just thought that
Yeah,
was ludicrous.
I think I've seen numbers like that for him before. He's mind blowing. He's crazy.
Yeah. Another one, the broadcast mentioned a couple of games ago that the 1973 Giants were the last team to start winning this series opening game. I think 11 series in a row, or was it
Yeah, the
10
Orioles were
maybe?
at 11.
Okay. So either way, I looked up those Giants just because I was curious who was on those teams, and they had Willie McCovey and Juan Marichal. But one thing I didn't realize, and maybe I should have, but I didn't realize how good
Mm.
Bobby Bonds was. Like I obviously Barry was is a legendary player for a number of reasons, but Bobby Bonds' 162 game average was 29 homers, 90 RBIs, and 40 steals over a 14-year career. Like that's ridiculous. I did not realize how
Yeah,
good
I
he was.
never got to see Bobby Bonds play, obviously. I grew up watching Barry Bonds play with the Pirates specifically. And yeah, I'd always heard his dad play, and I didn't know anything about him either. I remember looking him up and being like, oh, shit, Barry's dad was a damn good ball player.
And that Willie Mays is
Right.
Barry's godfather.
Yeah, that
I
was
like that
devastating when he
fact.
left the Pirates for the Giants. That was a real bummer in Western Pennsylvania.
I bet. And obviously we know how the rest of his career panned out. The last thing I have is just on Friday night. I was hanging out and I put on the Padres and Dodgers game. It was in San Diego, and the crowd was just electric, and it was completely sold out, and it was just a really fun atmosphere. Even on TV, you can kind of see the crowd come through. It's like watching the NHL playoffs. Just the hype and the excitement from the people watching makes it more fun to watch, and I just really
You said that
enjoyed
was
that.
in San Diego? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's good that they put money into the team, and I don't know where they're getting it from.
Hey, apparently middle market teams
Yeah,
can
somebody
spend
needs to
money.
tell John Angelos to
Or maybe we should just move to San Diego. I can't think of a good pun for a Padres podcast off the top of my head, but we could switch it at a
I saw
moment's
one actually.
notice.
It was called Pods Pod.
Okay. I get that. I feel like we could be a little more
That was
creative
their
than
first
that.
attempt.
Like prior weeks
Oh yeah, I did see some
Friars.
Friar ones in there. For some reason, I looked up Padres podcast.
They call
Yeah,
them the Friars there.
is Padres short for
Yeah.
compadres?
I just think it's like father, like a friar, like a Catholic. God, I don't know what I'm saying, like a monk or something. I have no clue. You got me there.
And I think we're done. Do you have
Yeah,
anything else before we get to our apologies? From there. All right. Okay, so that's all we have. Do you have any apologies?
this week I'm gonna go with Alan Mills, relief pitcher from the '90s.
Right. He made an all-star team, if I remember correctly.
See, Baseball Reference doesn't say so,
Okay, maybe not
but
then.
but you're usually right, so I'm gonna say they're wrong.
Who else did he play for? Was he a Yankee? Nope, just the Dodgers. Oh yeah, he was a Yankee. Aha!
Uh huh.
5
Yep.
career
Started
starts.
started with the Yankees and then spent 9 years with Baltimore and 2 years with the Dodgers.
Yeah, and then back to Baltimore at the end of his career.
Yep. So that's my guy. How about you?
15 career saves for Alan Mills. Yeah, so the Writers Guild went on streak this week. So if you're considering canceling a streaming service, now is a good time to do it. But that got me thinking about the 1994 players' strike that led to the cancellation of the World
Mm-hmm.
Series. In the spring of in the spring of '95, the owners threatened to begin the season with replacement players. One of those replacement players was Kevin Millar, who spent 3 years with the Orioles from '06 to 2008. So this week's apologies
Oh,
to
very
Kevin
nice.
Millar.
Very contextual. Is that the right word?
There was another replacement player here in town last week as the manager of the Rochester Red Wings. Yeah, it's Brian Daubach. He played like
Yeah.
6 years with the Red Sox, and then he spent 2000. Yeah, he spent 2005 with the Tides while with
Okay.
the
Yeah, I
Mets.
do remember him with the Red Sox.
So they don't get any licensing like for the video games that came out during that time. That was basically their only punishment for
Okay.
crossing the picket line.
And there's other like Barry Bonds was never in any of the video games, and like Michael Jordan wasn't for basketball. I don't really know why, but
Yeah, they had their own licensing deals. I don't know what that means, but yeah, Bonds came up specifically in the article I read when I looked up Millar.
well, Kevin Millar, Orioles legend. Sounds like a good way to wrap things up.
Yeah. So I don't even know who. Oh, we got Tampa tomorrow.
Tampa, then Pittsburgh, who normally they
Who
would
is
be a
struggling?
cakewalk, but they are currently very good. And who is next? There's somebody else good after that, and I'm trying to remember, and I'm currently looking it up, so I'm going to talk until I see it. Oh, the Angels. Yeah. So, I mean, they're the Angels, right? They have Otani and Trout, and They normally aren't that great, but they always have that potential.
Yeah, they're a fun punching bag. There's a great tweet. Have you ever seen this tweet about the Angels, Mike Trout, and Shohei Ohtani?
I'm not sure.
I'm gonna I'm gonna find it real quick. It came up during the World
Oh, is it
Baseball
about how like
Classic
they
while
did
they
really
were.
well and then they still lost like 11-10 or something silly like that?
Yeah, we'll end on this. This is from at Matt Tomic. Every time I see an Angels highlight, it's like Mike Trout hit 3 home runs and raised his average to 528, while Shohei Ohtani did something that hasn't been done since Tungsten Armo Doyle, the 1921 Akron groomsman, as the Tigers defeated the Angels 8-3.
Right, right. Yeah, well, that's fine. If they do that against
Yeah.
the O's, it works. But actually, the next time we talk, they won't have played the Angels yet. I got a little ahead of ourselves. That'll be the next series after our next episode. So we'll be talking Tampa and
Okay.
Pittsburgh next time. So we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be fun. So, yeah, we'll
All
see
right. See
everybody
you
next week.
next for episode 8. Take care.